Hi, I'm Dr. Leif Smith, and today I'm going to teach you how to beat panic attacks without having to go in and see a therapist and spend a lot of money. I'm going to teach you what the therapist would teach you if they're good, so that you don't have to spend so much money and so much of your time trying to get over panic, which is really disabling. It's one of the number one reasons people come in to see me. And today, quickly, I'm going to teach you the basics of what panic is, and I'm going to teach you a two-pronged approach or a two-pronged way to attack it so that you can start beating panic and feeling better and feeling happier in your life. So the first thing I would like to do is like to explain to you what panic really is. Panic attacks, you probably know them because you feel like you're going to have a heart attack. You get sweaty. You need to leave the room. A lot of people with panic attacks feel like they need to get out of wherever they are at. They feel the world is closing in on them. They feel physical pain. They feel hot and flush in their face. Sweaty palms. These are all symptoms of a panic attack. Feelings of dread, feeling like you're going to die. What is panic? Panic and panic attacks, and we can also call them anxiety attacks. It's really just a false alarm. What do I mean? What I mean by that, I should say, is your body is having a reaction to something that's not really a threat. So you're having a false alarm. It's like if you've ever been in any kind of school anywhere and somebody pulls the fire alarm by accident. This happens a lot in elementary school, junior high, high school, you name it. So somebody pulls the alarm, everybody has to react as if there is actually a fire going on at the school. So everybody has to be escorted out of the school, escorted to safety. Turns out it's a false alarm. That's what panic attacks are. It's a false alarm. So what you're not realizing, okay, is that this false alarm has been caused over time. Your body has been stressed out for such a long period of time that you are just now noticing it. And what happens is it creeps up on you. So when I'm talking to people with panic attacks, one of the first things they always say is, it came out of nowhere. I was in an elevator and I had a panic attack. I was talking to someone and I had a panic attack. I was driving on the highway with no one around me on a sunny day and I had a panic attack. Well, what actually happened was you were stressed out for a very long period of time. You were not aware of it, and your stress levels were building and building and building and building. You were not aware. You were not aware. One more little piece of stress, either internal stress, how you think, how you feel, or external stress, how someone else acts, the weather, something happening. Either an internal or an external stressor puts you over the top. Your body is now having a reaction as if you are in a crisis mode. The false alarm has been triggered. We need to understand that. That's what panic is. And so then you have real physical symptoms as if your life is in danger, as if you are going to die. But you are not in a situation where that is warranted. That is the basis, and that's what a therapist will teach you about panic attacks. So the first step in beating panic attacks is you need to be able to identify what triggers them. I would like you to take a piece of paper, and what I want you to put on one side is internal triggers. Go right down the middle. On the right side, the other side of the piece of paper, I want you to put external triggers. Those are the two topics for your piece of paper. And let's look at what are some of the things internally and externally that are making you have these false alarms. Some common ones. Internal triggers could be certain feelings. When you feel dread, when you start getting scared, when you feel surprised by something, when you feel overwhelmed. These feelings can be internal triggers. In other words, they start the process of panic going. They set it off. They pull the fire alarm in your body, in your nervous system. What are some external triggers? These might be easier to identify. Sometimes it's certain times of day, morning or night. A lot of clients tell me that sometimes at night they get more panic. Okay, so write that down. Maybe it's being alone. When you're by yourself, that can trigger panic. Maybe when you're extra tired physically, maybe that is a trigger externally. Maybe certain foods. You don't even realize it, but maybe eating certain types of foods. Maybe there's certain events or holidays in your life, social events. I'm personally an introvert. So I know in social situations, it takes a lot of work for me to be social because all day I'm talking to people every day. So when I go home and I want to be a regular guy, I'm feeling kind of introverted. So if we add panic in there, maybe a social situation would be a situation that would trigger it. I don't have panic, but if I did, that might be one of those external triggers. So maybe there are days of the week, maybe earlier in the week sets you off, maybe later in the week sets you off. But what I want you to do is I want you to go through a list, and you can ask your spouse, ask a significant other, ask a parent, ask a boyfriend, a girlfriend, ask a friend, and have them help you work through this list. Internal and external triggers, events, things like that would be external. Feelings, thoughts you're having would be internal. And let's make a list of things that set you off on the road to panic. The next step to beat panic attacks without having to go pay a therapist, the next step, once you have identified what the triggers are, we need to have some coping in place for the times that the panic starts being activated, for when the alarm, that fire alarm, the false alarm gets triggered. What are some common ways that people do that? And we call this contingent coping. Coping in the moment when there's full panic starting up. Well, some things you can do. You can slow your breathing down. Why does this work? Well, when we are stressed, when we start feeling panicky, our heart rate naturally goes up. In addition, our breathing gets much more shallow. When we are breathing shallow and our heart rate is going up, our blood pressure goes up, everything starts getting activated, right? This is a fight or flight response. A natural antidote to that is slowing down our breathing. If we slow it down, we can start getting more control of our heart rate. And if we can control our heart rate, we can control oxygenation and making sure we're not triggering that fight or flight response. I always recommend what I call Navy SEAL breathing, and that's another whole video. But slow breathing in through the nose, and we call this Navy SEAL breathing because it's something that they teach special forces, okay? They teach them how to breathe like this to calm down before they go on missions, before they do stressful things. Why not use it in your life? You want to breathe in through the nose, usually to the count of about 8. You want to breathe out through your mouth to the count of 16. In other words, you want to take twice as long on the exhale as you do on the inhale. In through the nose, out through the mouth. 8, 16. And you want to do that at least 5, 6 times in a row. What you're going to notice is when you do that, you get control over your diaphragm, you get control over your breathing, you get control over your heart. And when you do that, you are actually deactivating that false alarm. So this Navy SEAL breathing that we talk about, that I mentioned, is one way for you to cope. Another contingent coping you can do in the moment is to change how you think about things. So for instance, you're starting to have panic and you start feeling, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, here it comes. Maybe you can slow down and say, where's the evidence that I need to freak out right here? Where's the evidence that I'm going to die? What can I do to help myself right now? What's good about this? When you ask yourself better questions in that moment and you get out of the panicky state where your focus really narrows, okay? When you get out of that state and you broaden your focus, you can now start thinking much more rationally. That's very important so that you don't go down that rabbit hole of panic, so that you don't set off that alarm and call all the local fire departments in for this false alarm. We need to adjust our thinking in the moment. Where's the evidence that I need to panic? Where's the evidence that this is something I'm not going to be able to deal with? I remember one time working with a client who had panic. And so this is a late night client. This is like a 6 or a 7 p.m. client, last client of the day in my office. And in the middle of talking to the client, unbeknownst to the client, I got some chest pains. And it started hurting when I would move my arm. This was about 10 years ago, and I'm in my 40s. So it's pretty early to be having symptoms of heart problems and heart attack. But it hurt. It hurt really bad. And it would hurt when I would breathe in. And it was on the left side of my body. These are symptoms of heart attack, right? So my breathing got slower, got more shallow because I was hurting when I was breathing. And I remember in that moment starting to feel some anxiety. I thought, oh my gosh, if I'm having a heart attack, what is that going to do to my client? My client who is in here being treated for panic and his therapist has a heart attack? I'm going to screw him up for life. Yeah, no therapist wants to think about that. So I started getting pretty anxious. I noticed the symptoms of anxiety coming on. Get a little sweaty, get a little clammy, right? I knew in that moment, while I'm sitting there listening to my client talking, again, he had no idea I was going through this in my head, in my body, as I sit across from him. But it was scary. So I started getting control of my thinking. And I thought, interesting, are these signs of a heart attack? The answer was yes. These are signs of a heart attack. Is this something that I need to worry about? Maybe. Then I asked this magical question. Could something else explain the pain that I'm feeling right now? The answer is yes. Something else could explain this pain. What could explain it? Well, I had been doing a lot of push-ups. I'd been doing another sort of exercise program where I was doing a lot of push-ups, and I was trying to do a little bit more push-ups every day. It's a whole nother video. But it's something I call the 1% solution. If you get a little bit better every day, you're going to get a lot better in about 2 months. You'll be about twice as good. Something one of my mentors taught me. And so I was doing that with push-ups. And I had started at 25 push-ups, moved my way up to 100. The day before, I had done 1,300 push-ups in one day. So, could that explain the pain that I was feeling in my chest during this session? And the answer is an unequivocal yes. That could explain it. Once I started thinking that way, I started going down the road of, okay, this is physical pectoral pain. This is not a heart attack. I wasn't positive, but I was pretty sure. So my next thought was, what happens if I wait this out? If I wait it out, if I'm going to have a heart attack anyway, I'm still going to need to call EMS and figure out what I'm going to do with my client. But let me wait it out knowing that this is probably pectoral pain. So this was a way of changing my thinking in the moment to change the symptoms that I was feeling so that I wouldn't trigger a full false alarm. You can do the same thing in your life. And one final thought. We talked about contingent ways to prevent a false alarm. I also think it's important that you know that you need to have preventative measures in place so that you are not building the anxiety to the levels that it was at before. Your anxiety should not always be at 99% capacity. That's not healthy. And it doesn't take much to set off that false alarm if you're always at full capacity. So how do we get it down, right? How do we make sure that we don't get so stressed out that one little thing sets us off? This is what I'm talking about with preventative measures. So we need preventative measures in place. What are they? Well, these are things you can do long term that will physically reduce the stress in your body. There are so many things you can do. I recommend yoga. Yoga is great. Mentally and physically, yoga is great for you. I recommend working out, some sort of cardio workout, running, getting on a treadmill, exercising, martial arts, whatever it is for you. I recommend doing something physical that it gets your heart pumping and gets you sweating. That's a big thing you can do. Having hobbies, very important. I can't overemphasize this. You need to have some hobbies. Hobbies relax us. Hobbies bring our heart rate down. They bring our blood pressure down because they're so enjoyable. It could be collecting something. For instance, I collect vintage baseball cards. And when I go through my cards and when I sort them and I get a new card or I sell an old card, it relaxes me. I'm not aware of time. I'm not aware of anything else in the world except my hobby in that moment. And if you measured my heart rate, if you measured my stress levels, they would be precipitously lower when I'm engaging in my hobby. So that's something you can do also. Reading, speaking of hobbies, is a healthy activity you can do that can reduce stress. Anything long-term that you're going to do to reduce the stress levels that have been building up before is going to help. So I want you to make sure you have something long-term or preventative in your arsenal. And I want you to come up with a couple techniques you can do in the moment. Physical ones like breathing, or cognitive ones like changing the questions you're asking yourselves. Some contingent methods to beat panic. They work together, okay? It's a synergy. You need both of these together. The preventative prevents it from getting so high. The contingent, while you're working on it, keeps it down so it doesn't go that much higher, okay? That, in a nutshell, is what your therapist would do to treat you. They're going to change how you think about things, and they're going to physically change how you identify the buildup of stress in your body and relax in the moment when the false alarm gets triggered. That's all it is. It's a false alarm. I'm Dr. Leif Smith. Thank you for taking some time with me today to learn how to beat panic without having to go pay expensive fees and see a therapist with time that you don't have. Thank you for joining me, and I hope this was helpful for you, and I'll see you in the next video.